Backwards Moon, Chapter 19. As Ben drove, Nettle and Bracken rode beside him on the bench seat with the raccoon between them. There wasn't room in the truck for Dee and Anna, so even if they had wanted to go home to the mountains, they couldn't. Nettle thought about them as the city faded and was left behind. Were we right not to tell them who we are? She asked Bracken. I'm not sure, said Bracken, sighing. Do you think a human could go through the door? I doubt it, said Ben, because then your new world would just fill up with humans. But Dee and Anna aren't really humans, said Nettle. If they could get their magic back, they'd be witches again. But they can't get it back, said Bracken. That's what's so terrible about the fading. They rode for a while in silence. I wonder how they discovered where the door was and found the spell to go through, said Nettle. Do you think we'll ever find out? I doubt it, said Bracken. I think it's a story we'll never know. Some things you never do find out, said Ben. Sometimes life is like that. At least we know where they are and that they're still alive, said Bracken, and that would have to be enough. When it was almost light, Ben stopped at a gas station and bought them both pink t-shirts that said South Dakota across the front. When the truck was on the road again, Nettle and Bracken took off their hats and put them in their pockets, then put on the t-shirts over their dresses. Bracken wasn't sure if they could be seen, but when a car went by, Nettle waved and the driver waved back, so that answered that. Now Nettle and Bracken would pass for human children. At least for one quick glance at 60 miles an hour they could, Ben said. After that, and much pleading from Nettle, Ben let them scuttle in and use the restroom at gas stations. They were not to spend time looking at everything, but just scuttle back out again before they hopped in the truck and zoomed away. It was much easier and more interesting than having to squat in the dark or run behind a bush every time. Bracken agreed that bathrooms were indeed a marvelous invention. Her leg was getting much better. It was night when they reached Ben's farm. Spell or no spell, I'm going to sleep for a good long while, said Ben. We can pack for the mountains in the morning. Nettle and Bracken slept upstairs on a rickety iron bed in a small north-facing bedroom. The quilt had a musty smell, and there were old, faded flowers on the paper stuck to the walls. When they woke and went downstairs, it was late morning. Ben was cooking pancakes in the kitchen. The raccoon sat on the floor near his new water dish, watching attentively. I like sinks, said Nettle, as they did the dishes after breakfast. I wish we had sinks. I'm beginning to think we need to be a lot more inventive. I hope things are all right in the valley, said Bracken. What if a whole lot of humans got in while we were gone? We weren't gone that long. Nettle tried to think how many days it had been and couldn't. Still, said Bracken. You know, said Ben, putting down his dish towel, I've been thinking. I had an idea. At first, when he told them, they were quite surprised. It had to do with something called dynamite, but they both agreed that it seemed like a good plan, if all else failed. After that, Ben loaded down the truck with boxes and blankets and jugs of water and things to eat that came in cans. He put in a bundle with straps, like the one they'd seen on the two humans so long ago. Rucksack, he said. I had it in the army. He stowed it very carefully in one corner of the truck bed and told them never to touch it. They weren't leaving until early the next morning, so Nettle and Bracken had time to explore the house. They looked in closets and drawers and cupboards. Most of the rooms were dusty and cobwebby and empty feeling. It seemed as though Ben lived mostly in the kitchen and the bedroom next to it. Maybe I could call up Elizabeth on your telephone, said Nettle. It looked different from the one at Elizabeth's house. Still, it might work. We don't have her number, said Ben. She lives at 721 Elm Street, said Nettle, but Ben shook his head. A telephone number was not the same as a house number, it turned out. You could write her a letter, Ben said. He found some writing paper and a pen. It was a ballpoint pen, most wondrous. Nettle sat down at the kitchen table and wrote a long letter telling Elizabeth everything that had happened. Ben found a stamp and showed her where it went on the envelope and how to write the address the way the post office wanted you to. He even called up the postmistress on the telephone to get the zip code. I was gone for a while. He said to the telephone. Had a few things to do. I'm going out west for a while now, hitting the road. Nettle could hear the little voice answering back. Yep, Ben said. I'm not sure, really. Not for a week or so, anyway. Talk to you later. After supper, they all walked out to the mailbox at the end of the long lane. The pink and gold and orange sunset was spread out against the wide sky. Nettle opened the metal door and put the letter inside. Ben showed her how the flag went up for the mailman. Don't even limp at all now, said Nettle to Bracken as they walked back. It started to feel better before we even left the city. It started right when I got in the truck, said Bracken. That's odd, said Nettle. Why would that be? It does seem strange, said Ben. The raccoon padded quickly down the road, head down. Try flying, he said when they got back to the grove of trees around the farmhouse. Go ahead, just try. Bracken got on her broom and took a deep breath. She pushed off, wobbled, and made a slow circle around. You'll be soaring soon, just you watch, said the raccoon. How did you know? Asked Nettle, suddenly curious. I made a wish, said the raccoon. What? Said Bracken, landing. You what? When I was riding beside you in the truck, I touched the necklace. I wished for your leg to get better so you could fly again. I know I'm not a witch, but I figured, why shouldn't a raccoon get a wish? And what was the harm if it didn't work? But you could have used up the third wish, cried Bracken. I wished it, not you, said the raccoon. And you need to fly, see? You can't spend the rest of your life not flying. There was a long pause. It was nice of you, said Bracken tensely, but didn't you hear what we said about how magic has rules? The necklace only grants 3 wishes. The raccoon looked away, shoulders hunched. I think you worry too much, he said quietly. I think the magic is more generous than that, and I was sad. Seeing you not be able to fly, I felt... He stopped, then spoke in a voice almost too low for them to hear. I felt like it was my fault. Don't think that. It wasn't your fault, said Bracken. She squatted down so their 2 heads were level with each other. Don't ever think that. The raccoon nodded. Thanks, he muttered. Then they all walked on together.